Greetings World and Greetings 7 Spot. Today, I am doing something a bit different. We typically do lots of virtual and socially distanced sevens, but this one's a little bit different. What we are doing is appealing to and recording the life and times of folks who are building a car. And some have built it and some have finished it. So two questions I have, and I'm going to ask, are why and how long did it, or how long will it take? And today we have a special guest, Steve Dunbar. And Steve and I go way, way, way back. And this is my own personal story, and I'm going to add it to it because we first met at an all British field mate. And I believe it was in about 2004. Is that about right, Steve?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Jim. And I can remember you having your 7 there. And of course, I was all over it because it was my intention. I think my intention to do a build goes back to probably the early 60s, the first time I laid my eyes on a Super 7, and just absolutely fell in love with them from that point on. And it's just been a love affair. Unfortunately, due to lack of funds, I could never afford one. And when I lived in Montreal, the importer for Caterhams at that time was in Marble Arch, just outside of Boston. And I went over there to have a look at his cars, and there is not one that I could fit in. He had several cars, some modified, but none of them I could fit into, Jim.
Yeah.
And I was quite disheartened. But in the meantime, the other love that I had was for motorcycles, and I found a builder who had Ducati parts, and I got myself my other love, which was a 350 single Ducati. And eventually, as time marched on, a friend of mine gave me the we all know the book and love the book. A friend of mine gave...
You mean that one?
That's Bookends. Yeah. So once I got the book, that was a whole new inspiration for me. And that happened approximately 10 years ago, Jim.
All right.
And at that point, I started looking for a donor. And my love for Alfa Romeo stemmed from many, many years of enjoying Alfa Romeo. So I looked around and I found myself an ideal donor.
Yeah.
And bought the car, and that sat around for a number of years waiting for me to get the time. And of course, as you know, family matters and all of the things that intervene. And I retired 6 years ago and started stripping the Alpha at that point.
Yeah.
So my build has been quite long in the process so far, but as I point out to everybody, it's a labor of love.
Yeah,
I absolutely love being in my shop. At the moment, as you can see, I'm in my shop. I was working on a throttle linkage, which I just got some little pieces here that I'm working on. Yeah, I pretty much make everything myself. And I've just, my shop is quite small. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a quick look around the shop just to get an indication.
Okay, I'm going to take myself out of the picture because this is, I always tell everybody, it's not about me, it's about you. So I'm going to take myself out and you can show us what you got.
Okay.
Can I ask for one favor of you? Could you rotate your camera on its horizontal axis, and because you're not filling up the full frame?
Okay.
No, there we go. That works much, much better. Great.
Okay.
Fabulous. Yeah.
Great. And now I'm going to turn around and just, so I'm basically standing at the door of my shop. And as we go around, you can see the shop is 24 feet by 12. And I've been very fortunate to find good steel all over the place to build my gantry. And that's the only way I can work with the pulling the motor. And you can see the gantry that I've built up high up in as high as possible in the shop.
Wow, that's great. You've got a gantry. I've just got a cherry over there. Yeah, that's fabulous.
Well, you know, in order to accommodate everything, I've had to put everything on sort of little rollers and wheels to keep moving around the shop.
Oh, beauty.
It took a while to get that all sorted out. But as I say, it's a small shop, and I've got pretty much everything I want. my favorite tools are files, hacksaw, and this little jig that I got from Lee Valley is fits in your vise, and you can bend brackets, 90-degree brackets, very nicely, very easily.
Yeah.
So that was a cheap little tool. So most of the bits and pieces, as you can see, the chassis is just about 90% done.
It's coming along beauty. It looks beautiful.
The using an Alfa Romeo was a bit of a problem because it's a big engine. It's a 2-liter motor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not big comparison to what some people are using, but the layout of everything, in order to get the steering column in, that was a bit of a zigzag. Brake pedal box and all of that's in. And as I say, I'm just working on the throttle linkage right now. Panhard rod, I've still got to finish welding up, but that's ready. The back axle is all in. I've just finished making the gas tank brackets and strapping. I bought some strapping to go between the steel brackets.
You got the same jazz cell that I have.
Yeah. And those are the seats that I made. I got some old go-kart seats that I rebuilt and had to play around with. I'm not terribly happy with them totally, Jim. I think you've got some nice seats. I'd like to talk to you about your seats eventually.
Okay, well, they're very easy to come by. I mean, there's lots of providers, so we can have a chat with a number of them. In fact, I'm going to be doing some interviewing on 7Spot of a number of guys who make them. So keep your eyes open for that.
Certainly will do, Jim. And now the front suspension was kind of interesting. As you can see, I've got all the wishbones all done. And because Alfa Romeo used a steering box on the Spider, and that means that you've got a connecting rod from the left to the right, just behind the gearbox.
Yes.
And now going to a Spitfire rack and pinion, which is all here.
Yeah.
I had to make these, take the left side and put it on the right and the right side on the left. So that changed the geometry of the front suspension completely and made things a little bit. I spent about 3 months and at least 3 to 4 different configurations on sorting out the bracketing for the front suspension to get caster camber and all of those things correct. So I've got plenty of adjustments in the front end. And at this point, originally I was using the Alfa Romeo engine mounts, which were fairly big. Here's one here. That's an original Alfa Romeo
mount,
engine mount, and they were a little bit too tall, and the motor was sticking up higher than the nose cone. And so I found from a company out in Langley called the Old Car Center, lovely bunch of people, and they had a set of engine mounts. They knew exactly what I was looking for. And these are from a 1937 Ford Flathead V8.
No kidding. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And the funny part about it is the fella that I spoke to there immediately said, I know what you want. And he called out the part number to his buddy in the back. And that's what they came up with. Very reasonable. And they dropped the engine another 1.25 inches, which I wanted. The nose cone fits comfortably. And that changed my steering position a little bit, which was good. It improved it. So at the moment, I've got a Kinetics vehicle's nose cone and scuttle, and the roll bar as well came from Kinetics. And I've got that all set up now, but there's still a little bit of finishing welding to do.
That looks
and touch up.
It looks sharp.
But at the moment, I'm just I just love being in my shop.
Yeah.
And I find little bits and pieces. Every now and again you get to a point where you feel that, I'm not making as much progress, and you think you should be a lot further ahead. And then you stop for a while and you start doing things like making your throttle linkages and all the little stops and things like that. I made those yesterday just out of a bit of bar stock aluminum. And, as I say, you just get in there and you start playing around with what one has got. And I mean,
Well,
what can I say?
I can add only a little bit to that, because what I found is, when you're at the beginning or even towards the middle of the build, you don't see the end point, because it's such a distant ways off, and it can become a little bit discouraging. But when you get distracted by that, you can literally get your feet stuck in mire. But finding those extra little things to do, like you're doing right now, and just focusing and enjoying on that particular task, it has a cumulative effect. And as you move through these, then the pieces start to come together, and you can actually see it coming to end. And I'm looking at what you've got now. I'm impressed. It looks great.
Jim, that's exactly true what you're saying. As far as it goes back to the old thing, baby steps.
Yeah.
It's great when you start your layout table and you get your bench made up and you do your first couple of chassis rails down, and you think, wow, this is looking good. And then you get to a point where you stall a little, or you come across a hiccup, and that holds you back. But then, as chatting to people like yourself and other people, and going through your site, 7 Spot, and it gives you a bit of inspiration, and you see fellows that do some absolutely wonderful work, and you can't be discouraged by the fact that there's a lot of very, very good builders out there, and some people with a lot more money than us, and they can. Oops, I just dropped my earbuds.
That's all right.
There we go. So you just go one step at a time, and do what you have to do. As I say, baby steps. Oh, just saw something else. I don't know if you can see that little oil filter remote thing that I put on there.
Yeah.
I got that also from the old car center.
I'm going to get one of those for mine, because mine's got bike engine, but it's in a horrible location for changing oil. That's a fabulous thing to have.
Yeah, and this is a universal mounted one, Jim. It'll fit just about any particular. It'll take any oil filter. It's got all the adapters to fit just about any motor, from metric fittings and plumbing fittings to ANC to all of the ANSY's products. So it comes with a whole bunch of different little fittings. So
you and I will chat.
Yeah. So I had to get something like that, because from the position of the filter itself would interfere with my front suspension.
Yeah.
And now I'll obviously have it mounted remotely. But if you can have a look at my exhaust there, it's very close to the chassis. So I'm going to have a bit of fun playing around with that, whether I go to make a new manifold or adapt something for this. But at the moment, those are little details that I'm not too concerned about at the moment. They will sort themselves out when the time comes. The injection system, this particular Alpha motor came with the Bosch electronic fuel injection. And I didn't like that at all. It was a huge, monstrous, ugly-looking system, because it had a massive big plenum going over the engine, and it had vacuum lines and water cooling, and terrible. So what I might be doing is one of two things: adapt this manifold to fit throttle body, and do direct-to-head fuel injection.
Yes.
Secondly, I could put on a speaker mechanical fuel injection manifold, which has the butterflies already included in the trumpets. And at that point, all I have to do is adapt the injectors, or make a manifold for injectors to go in. But those are little things that I'm not really worried about at the moment, Jim. They'll sort themselves out when the time comes. The big thing now is obviously to get the rest of the chassis and get it up on its wheels. I've still got to make spaces for all of the brackets that, just to get all the Heim joints in the right position by spacing them correctly. So basically, Jim, that's it. The roll bar, I had to make it removable. I've got it cut there with a couple of sleeves on the inside. So that will bolt together once I've got that, the finished product. And of course, that will be able to remove the gas tank at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fun project, Jim.
Well, my hat's been taken off and I'm waving it. That looks great. I'm proud of you, Steve. Actually, because I go back to what I said originally. This was 2004 when we met, and you came up and told me this was something you were planning to do, and I am so happy to see that. I'm so happy to see the progress that you've made, because like I said, I have other friends and I know other people that have made it more or less to the stage where you're at, and then it's just gathered dust for years, and it's just great. It's great to see that you're moving forward.
Well, fortunately, Jim, it took me a long time to get to this point. Not just the fact, the starting point, but just the whole process of trying to accumulate the right tools and thinking about what am I going to need, how am I going to do this, and I'd planned the build for a long time before I actually started. And that makes a huge difference, sort of the planning stage. And of course, writing things down, making little notes to yourself, and writing up a job list. And there's nothing more satisfying than, your job list with a line through item 1, item 2, item 3. Oh, well, we'll skip item 4 for now. Yeah. And just, systematically going through it. Then some things stall you for a bit of time, but once you sort of get over those little hurdles and move on, it's a great feeling, and I'm just looking forward to moving on to the next stage.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to being caught up with what you're doing too. So can you mind if I ask? Why don't you rotate your camera around so I can see your smiling mug, and and I'll put myself back in. And I guess for now, I mean, we were neighbors, in a way. I lived in Burnaby and you lived in Burnaby too. We didn't know that at the time we first met at Seven Spot, and then we happened to meet again a few years later at a Canada Safeway, I think, and we kind of retouched base. But I'm so pleased to see you now and to see what's going on. I'm really, really happy for you, Steve.
Well, Jim, I'm so pleased that we bumped into each other and kept in touch. And this is a great for me to help myself with learning from people like yourself and taking inspirations.
Believe me, nobody is ever going to point to my car and say, that's the one that I want to build. They won't be pointing out. It was a labor of love, and I did it, because I wanted a project with my kids, and it was just fabulous to do that. I'd never built anything before in my life, and my learning curve was straight up. So I'm glad I did it, and it worked out. But it wasn't a scratch build. It was just an assembly project. It was a mechano kit because it was a kit. So it's a completely different ball game to what you're doing. So I take my hat off to you.
Thanks, Jim. Well, a lot of the things, even I'll just turn the camera around and show a little a jig that I made to help me cut things quickly and square.
All right, I'm going to take
one moment
out of the picture. Yeah. There we go.
This bolts at the back onto my vise, and once that's bolted in the vise, it clamps up, and those two cuts, the saw blade fits in there, and you get an absolutely square cut every time. And every time you put a new piece of material in, you just line your marks up with those saw cuts, and
oh, there you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I was looking up for something hanging from a chain.
That's my old pocket watch.
Okay. So can you point it just down a little bit more? Okay. God. Oh, that's perfect. Look at that.
Yeah. So this fits into my vise, and the tubing, the square tubing, just fits in there quite nicely.
Perfect cut.
And then I've got these cuts that I did on a machine to give me lovely vertical square cuts every time without thinking too much about it.
Yeah, terrific stuff.
Yeah.
As we say in Afrikaans, lekker.
Ach, dis lekker werk, ek sê.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to turn around again, Jim, if, oops.
Yeah, all right.
Get my hand out the way. There we go.
You know, we've got about 21 minutes here, and I'm going to kind of tune us out at the moment and say
Okay.
thank you so much. This is absolutely fabulous, and I'm going to take some of your lovely pictures and this bunch of film. I'm going to edit it, and it'll be up on 7 Spot as an inspiration to everyone. And believe
thank
me,
you.
I am totally inspired by what you're doing. It's great.
Well, I just have to do a little shout out for my T-shirt here, Jim.
Yeah, perfect.
Goodwood.
Revival of Speed.
The revival. Oh, yeah. This was the revival, and it was absolutely a fantastic event. If any of your gearhead friends out there have a holiday in the UK, plan it around either the Festival of Speed or the revival.
Yeah.
I mean, to see all the old cars and driven like they should be driven is fantastic. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, Jim, that's okay for now.
All right.
I look forward to seeing the post, and anytime when I've got some progress, or anytime you want to, we can get together and have a chat. And
I'm looking forward to it, because this is the stuff that we all need. Just a little boot in the ass, or just a shot of adrenaline, or a shot of coffee, just something to get us back out in the shed.
Absolutely. Well, I think the last time I spoke to you, Jim, I said, this is the inspiration I need to drop it into second gear and put the foot down again.
Perfect.
Just to get going.
All right. Well, why don't we say ta-ta for now, and we'll keep in touch.
Cheers, Jim.
See you at 7
Take care,
Spot.
lad.
You bet. Bye now.
Bye-bye.